This story isn't here to chase views. It's a hard lesson from someone who ignored the signs. Learn from it. Don't repeat it.
The man behind the counter hesitated, blinked, then tried to recover with a laugh that didn't quite reach his eyes. Must have been a mix-up. We get a lot of people dropping stuff off. Could have been a boyfriend maybe, or I don't know. Sorry, man. I didn't respond, just turned and walked out with the gym bag in one hand, the Lexus key still warm in the other. Outside, the air was heavy with summer sweat and tire dust. My wife's car sat under a jacaranda tree, its hood dappled in purple petals and sunlight. I opened the trunk and placed the bag inside like it might explode. Then I stood there for a long moment, watching the gym's automatic doors slide open and closed as bodies passed through. No one noticed me, especially not her. She was still inside, somewhere, stretching maybe, laughing, or with whoever the front desk guy thought her husband was. If you're still listening, and any of this feels uncomfortably familiar, hit like and subscribe. Most people just listen in silence, but that one click tells the team these stories matter. Back at home, the bag sat on the kitchen table. I didn't unzip it, didn't touch her phone either. It was upstairs, still locked, still quiet. But I could feel it. A tension, like someone had stepped into our home and moved just one object half an inch. Nothing looked wrong, but everything felt off. She walked in around 7:40 p.m., hair damp, skin glowing from heat or effort or both. Traffic was horrible, she said, dropping her keys with a practiced clink. You didn't have to pick me up. I would have grabbed an Uber. I nodded once. You left your bag. Oh, did I? That's weird. She walked past it without pause. Maybe the staff found it later. They said your husband dropped it off. She paused in front of the fridge, opened it, took out a bottle of coconut water. What? She said casually, twisting the cap. That's just probably someone else. I mean, they see 1 million people a day. I watched her take a sip. Her throat moved once smoothly. She didn't look at me. They gave it to me, I said. She laughed, too easily, too brightly. See? Just a mix-up. You're here, aren't you? Then she leaned on the counter and started scrolling her phone like the conversation hadn't happened, and maybe for her it hadn't, but I remembered the way that guy looked at me, the way his voice shifted when he said husband, not someone, not a guy, not her partner, he was sure. And that surety didn't come from nowhere. That night, when she showered, I sat in the hallway, the gym bag open in front of me. Inside, towel, water bottle, phone charger, small notebook with yoga poses scribbled inside and tucked into the side pocket. A receipt for smoothies, too. Time-stamped 9:42 a.m. She told me her session started at 10. The tea between us steamed in silence. Hers was peppermint, mine green. She cradled the mug like it grounded her, eyes soft, almost sleepy from whatever she'd done all day. The room smelled faintly of eucalyptus from the diffuser she'd left running. I watched the corner of her mouth curve, not a smile, not quite, a flicker of something quieter. And I realized then that she wasn't nervous. She didn't seem afraid of being caught. Because in her mind, I wasn't even close. She didn't ask about the gym bag. Not even a simple, oh, how'd you end up getting it? Just moved past it like a detail she'd already rewritten, and that, more than anything, made my stomach tighten. She'd made peace with lying to me. She'd practiced this. She ate half her dinner, picked at the rest, told me she was sore from a new routine. My legs are jelly, she said with a small laugh, standing to stretch, her voice light, eyes a little too bright. I might take another bath. You already showered, I said. She paused for a second, then brushed it off. Just soaking. Helps with recovery. Upstairs, I heard the water run, the soft thud of a cabinet opening, then silence. I sat at the table another 20 minutes, barely breathing, eyes fixed on her untouched fork. The next morning, she left early. Said she had back-to-back client calls and might stop at the juice bar after. I kissed her cheek like I always did. She didn't linger. The Lexus pulled out of the driveway at 7:14 a.m. sharp. I went upstairs and opened the closet. Her yoga mat was gone, so was the black gym bag, the one I'd carried in the day before. She hadn't swapped it, just repacked it like nothing had happened. Like the entire sequence of events, bag dropped off by her husband, me standing there holding it, was something I'd imagined, and maybe I would have let it go, if not for the pattern. The night before, She plugged in her phone in the bathroom instead of the bedroom. She never used to do that. Her lock screen changed from her favorite photo of us in Big Sur to some abstract glittery pink wallpaper. No passcode sharing anymore. Not since last month. I hadn't noticed at first. It was the kind of slow shift that creeps in while you're paying attention to bills, groceries, the furnace filter. But now I saw it all at once. How much of her life had become unreachable. That weekend, she took a Saturday client brunch that ran nearly 6 hours. No text, no photos, no location sharing. When I asked if she'd had fun, she said it was fine and went straight upstairs to nap. I looked out the window as the sun fell behind the sycamores. Her Lexus sat in the driveway, silent, warm. There was a lipstick tube on the passenger seat I didn't recognize, a smear of something peach-colored across a napkin. Someone had laughed in that car. Maybe not at me, but definitely without me. I stayed quiet, not because I didn't know, but because I needed to know more. 3 days passed, long silent hours where I played my part. Husband, listener, steady background presence. She moved through the house like nothing had shifted, laughed at her shows, took long showers, reached for my hand in public like we were still us. That morning, after she left, I pulled up our shared mobile account. I told myself I wasn't going to snoop. But there it was, plain as breath, a pattern of calls, always from the same number. Early mornings, 5:12, 5:46, 6:03, sometimes in the evenings too, just minutes after she said she was hitting the gym or staying for a late sauna. Once it rang out at 11:42 p.m., the night she claimed she had a client call that ran long. The number was saved in her phone as M. Taylor Consultant. We hadn't hired any new consultants. And M. Taylor sounded almost official, safe, like a spreadsheet, a tax guy, a vendor with invoices and disclaimers. But I knew every person she worked with. And more than that, I knew Mark Taylor. He was our accountant for years. Quiet man, golf shirts in winter. Retired 2 springs ago, moved to Arizona to be closer to his grandkids. He wasn't taking calls at dawn, and he wasn't waiting for my wife after yoga. I stared at the number again, then grabbed a burner phone I kept for travel. It had a local SIM, no contacts. I dialed. 2 rings. Hey, a male voice said, casual, low. You okay? I thought you'd still be at the gym. I didn't say a word, just listened to his breath. Then I ended the call. The silence after felt louder than his voice. I sat down on the edge of the bed and looked at the framed photo on the dresser, us at her cousin's wedding, her in that navy dress she never wore again. My hand was on her waist, her head tilted toward mine like a sunflower. That woman didn't exist anymore, or maybe she never did. Later that evening, I watched her reapply mascara in the mirror before dinner. She hummed softly, some pop song from a playlist I didn't recognize. I wondered if he'd heard her hum that same tune. Her phone vibrated on the counter. One buzz, then quiet. She didn't rush to it, didn't even glance. It was all rehearsed now, and I realized whatever this was, it had passed the stage of flings and flirtations. This was routine, polished, managed. She wasn't trying to hide it anymore. She just thought I wouldn't look. She left early again that morning. Smooth kiss on my cheek, something about back-to-back meetings downtown, and then she was gone, tires humming over the gravel. I stood in the doorway a long time after the Lexus disappeared from view. The quiet in the house felt different now. It wasn't peace. It was vacancy. I opened my laptop, pulled up our old shared calendar. We'd used it for years. Dinners, appointments, vacations, even reminders to water the plants while the other was gone. It was ordinary, boring, safe, but when I started scrolling backward, patterns began to glow like a map under blacklight. Client event. Boston in October. But our bank statements showed a flight to Phoenix, company retreat, Napa in May. Yet there were no hotels booked anywhere near California that week. Training weekend, Denver. And yet the only expense listed was a room in Asheville, a boutique cabin resort, 2 nights, 1 booking, 2 guests. I didn't react. Didn't pace or scream or throw anything. I just opened iCloud. Her Apple Watch had auto-synced last month while she borrowed my charger. I don't think she even realized it. The location history was messy, scattered, but it told its own story. Routes that ended near waterfront hotels, repeated drop-offs at a house across town, never labeled, never explained, sauna visits that started at 8 p.m. and ended near midnight, nowhere near the gym. I went deeper into the image cache. Most were harmless. Food pics, workout selfies, screenshots of skincare routines. But one folder caught my eye. Favorites. Inside 29 photos, some cropped, some blurred, fragments. A close-up of someone's shoulder, a second coffee cup beside hers, a hotel bathroom with 2 toothbrushes, a pair of sneakers. Men's, not mine. And then one that didn't get the treatment. Slipped in between screenshots of affirmations and meal plans. A mirror selfie, gym locker room, her towel around her shoulders, damp hair, skin flushed. And behind her, unmistakable even in low light, his arm, around her, bare, confident, familiar. They were both smiling. That was what broke the stillness in me, not the fact that it was him, not even the arm, but the smiles, like it was normal. Like they'd done this a dozen times before. I leaned back in the chair, screen glowing, her reflection still staring at me from a photo she probably thought she'd deleted. She wasn't hiding. Not really. She just never expected me to check. Because somewhere along the way, I stopped being the person she thought she had to lie to. I'd become background, convenient, predictable. And for the first time since this started, I understood something colder than betrayal. She wasn't afraid I'd find out. She was sure I wouldn't. Nora was already there when I pulled into the lot, sitting in a booth by the window, stirring her coffee like it had insulted her. She looked up when I walked in, tried to smile, then didn't, just nodded. The air between us felt like pressure glass. One wrong move and the whole thing would crack. I slid into the booth without a word and set my phone on the table, turned the screen toward her. Her eyes flicked down. The photo I'd found, the locker room mirror, his arm, her smile, a snapshot of the life Jasmine never mentioned. Nora blinked hard, set her spoon down. "How long?" I asked. She swallowed. "Please don't drag me into this." "You're already in it," I said, my voice low. "You're her sister. You've always been her person. I'm not asking for sides, just truth." She stared at the phone again. The edge of her lip trembled. "Almost a year," she whispered. "It started slow. Texts, excuses. I thought it would fizzle. I told her to stop. I said it would destroy everything. But she didn't," I said. "No." Nora's hands curled around her cup like it was the only solid thing in reach. "She said she needed excitement again, that you were too steady, too careful." "She said that?" Nora nodded. Her voice cracked. "She said you were too calm to ever find out, that she didn't even have to lie carefully. Just say it with confidence and you'd believe it." The words hung between us, louder than the clatter of forks or the hum of the neon sign above the register. Too calm, not blind, not stupid, just calm, like it was a flaw. I sat back, exhaled slowly. "She ever mention a name?" Nora hesitated. "No, but I've seen him once outside her studio. I didn't know what to say." "You didn't tell me." "She's my sister," she said, barely above a whisper. I didn't want to believe it was serious. I nodded. "Now you know." She reached out then, tried to touch my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't meet her eyes either. "Do you love her?" she asked. I didn't answer. Because love wasn't the point anymore. What burned wasn't that she stepped out. It was that she thought I was too dull to notice, that her silence and my restraint made her untouchable, that she'd rewritten the definition of husband without telling the man who held the title. When I left the diner, I didn't say goodbye, just paid the check, stepped into the wind, and let the door close behind me. Something in me had shifted. Not rage, not heartbreak, just a cold, measured certainty. She thought my calm meant I'd never act. She was about to find out what calm looks like when it moves. I waited until the house was empty, until I heard the Lexus disappear down the block, and the street fell silent again. Then I walked into the office, unlocked the second drawer in the walnut cabinet, and pulled it open for the first time in almost 8 years. Everything was still there. Binder-clipped files, notarized statements, laminated copies of our original prenup. I ran my hand over the edge of the paper like it was a blueprint for something I hadn't known I'd be building. When we signed it, she'd laughed. It's all formality, she said. We'll never need this. But I'd read every line, and tucked in page 6 beneath the boilerplate and the equity split provisions was the clause I never forgot. In the event of substantiated infidelity, Party A reserves exclusive rights to contested property and income gained jointly thereafter. It was dry, precise, worded by an old-school attorney who believed in clear penalties. We'd both signed it, smiling, champagne glasses clinking nearby. A joke back then, but jokes have weight when they're inked. I laid out the rest: joint investment summaries, deed transfer language, vehicle registrations, equity pools from our early real estate ventures, all tied to both names, all carrying quiet consequences if one side broke faith. Then I took out my phone and called Clara, our family attorney. She'd helped draft the prenup. Trusted, discreet. Can we meet? I asked. I'd like to update a few provisions. She didn't ask why. Just gave me a time and a corner table at a quiet Italian place she favored for delicate conversations. At lunch, I kept my tone neutral, calm. We walked through each file one by one. Clara didn't pry, but she watched me the way attorneys do when they know something's about to shift. When I passed her the printed texts and call logs, sanitized, cataloged, she said only, "You've documented this well." I nodded. "There's more. I'll send the photo archive and the iCloud data by end of day." She paused. "Are we pursuing immediate action?" "Not yet," I said, "but I want everything prepared. No surprises." She nodded once. Understood. We talked through timelines, quiet freezes, asset positioning, mediation if required, litigation if forced. Her tone was business. Mine was colder. When I returned home that night, Jasmine was on the couch, barefoot, legs tucked under her, sipping one of those herbal elixirs she'd started making. She smiled up at me like nothing had changed. "Long day?" "Just meetings," I said, setting my bag down. She never asked where. Didn't wonder why I smelled like espresso and legal pads instead of spreadsheets. She had no idea that behind my stillness, the pieces were already shifting. Quietly, completely. Because I wasn't planning revenge. I was executing protection, and I wasn't angry. I was ready. The morning air had that early summer thickness, warm already, cicadas starting up in the trees. I parked under the shade of a half-dead elm across from Riverline Fitness, seat pushed back, sunglasses on. I didn't pace, didn't fidget. I just waited. Her session ended at 10:15. I knew because I checked her class schedule on the app she forgot I could still access. At 10:19, the doors slid open. She came out in those deep navy leggings she never wore around me anymore. Fresh ponytail, gym bag over one shoulder, laughing at something he said beside her. He was taller than I expected, lean, confident, too tan for March. No wedding ring. They walked slowly like they had time to waste, no nerves, no glancing around. This was normal for them, comfortable. He leaned in and kissed her cheek just as they reached her car. I got out of mine and crossed the street. She didn't see me at first, but he did. His smile faded, and he instinctively stepped back. Not far, but enough. She turned to follow his gaze, and that's when her entire body stiffened. "Hey," I said, voice steady, steps even. Just wanted to return your gym bag." She blinked, already shaking her head. "The staff gave it to me," I added, eyes still on her. Said her husband had dropped it off. He looked between us, trying to place me, the name she must have used, the version of me she'd described. She opened her mouth. No sound came. I didn't give her the chance to fill the silence. I held out a thick manila folder, unlabeled, clean, crisp, everything you need's inside. She didn't take it at first, just stared at it like it might burn her fingers. Then, slowly, her hand came up and wrapped around the edge. Her nails were still wet from a fresh coat, light coral, the shade she wore for events, things that mattered. "What is this?" she finally asked, voice too quiet. "A record," I said simply. He took a step closer to her, protective, unsure. But I wasn't looking at him, not anymore. Her eyes searched mine, trying to find the version of me she was used to. The one who'd ask questions, demand explanations, break a little. But I didn't give her that either. I turned without another word and walked back to my car. Behind me, I heard her call my name once, but not like a lover, like someone who realized the ground had shifted. The engine started smooth. I didn't peel out, just eased away from the curb. In the rear view, I saw her still standing there, folder clutched tight, gym bag slipping off her shoulder, and the man beside her looking like he just now understood he wasn't the main character in this story. She used to say I was too quiet. She never asked what I was listening for. Clara met me at her office just after lunch on Monday. Her assistant brought in coffee without being asked. Black, no sugar. She knew I didn't want small talk. Her counsel reached out, Clara said, flipping through the manila folder I'd delivered Saturday evening. They're calling the fidelity clause unrealistic, claim it's punitive and unenforceable. I didn't react, just leaned back in the chair and let her continue. They want mediation. I nodded once. Fine, but the asset freeze stays until full review. Clara smiled then, tight and professional, the kind of smile attorneys wear when they know the law is on their side and the opposition's bluff is already folding. She never read the full document, did she? She asked. No, I said. She skimmed the preamble and signed it between engagement party toasts. Then she's going to be very surprised. The clause wasn't flashy, just a single paragraph tied to property access, contingent on exclusive fidelity to the marriage contract. There was even a notarized addendum we added in year 2, post-refinance, linking all jointly acquired assets to that same standard. She had no idea what she'd co-signed, but I did. By Wednesday, her gym friend, M. Taylor, on her phone had gone quiet. No more calls, no more early texts. His number stopped appearing in the records entirely. Either he ghosted or she told him to vanish. Either way, it didn't matter. The exposure had done its work. Thursday morning, the bank flagged a failed attempt to transfer $4,300 from our joint account to her personal one. Auto decline. She texted me that afternoon. Is the bank having a system issue? I didn't reply. She tried again later that night, called twice, left a voicemail. I just want to understand what's happening. Can we talk without all the legal stuff? I archived the message. Friday afternoon, the DMV sent confirmation that the Lexus, originally under both our names, was now legally transferred. I'd filed the paperwork with the original bill of sale attached, citing the prenup clause, and Clara's signed affidavit. It passed through without resistance. She hadn't even noticed yet, because she was still operating from the old playbook, where I was predictable, pliable, the steady one who didn't make moves unless prompted. But I wasn't playing defense. I was enforcing boundaries with precision. Her lawyer called one more time that week. This time his tone had shifted, less posturing, more careful. We just want to be sure everyone walks away from this with dignity, he said. I didn't answer directly, just passed the phone back to Clara, who smiled again. Same tight smile. By the time the weekend hit, the storm had already settled into quiet damage. Not explosive, just irreversible. She thought the law was something you dodge. I knew it was something you design. She showed up just after 8, coat unzipped, eyes rimmed red like she hadn't slept or had cried for hours, or both. The porch light flickered overhead, casting her face in waves of pale gold and shadow. She didn't knock, just stood there until I opened the door. The silence between us stretched for a long moment. She looked thinner, or maybe it was just the absence of confidence that used to carry her. Shoulders pulled in, voice softer than I'd ever heard it. I messed up, she said. Her voice caught on the last word. But does it really have to go this far? Do we have to burn it all down? I didn't answer right away. I stepped outside, letting the door click gently behind me. The air was sharp with the smell of damp leaves and some neighbor's wood-burning stove. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked once, then silence again. You weren't just unfaithful, I said slowly. You didn't just make a mistake in a moment. She flinched, but I kept going. You built another life, a whole rhythm, morning calls, shared smoothies, him picking up your gym bag, and you let him use my name, not just privately, publicly. Her eyes darted up. That wasn't... Don't, I said. She stopped. I could have forgiven weakness, I said, but you handed over the structure we built together, like it meant nothing. She opened her mouth again, then gave up halfway through whatever excuse she thought might land. Instead, she stepped forward slightly, hand trembling as she reached for mine. I didn't move to meet it. I took a step back. Everything in the envelope is fair, I said. You know that. It feels like punishment, she whispered. No, I said, quieter now. It's not revenge. It's alignment. You chose your path. I'm just making sure I'm not still standing in the middle of it. A breeze lifted the hem of her coat, pushed a strand of hair across her cheek. She didn't move to fix it. There was nothing left to fix. I opened the door behind me. She didn't try to follow, didn't ask to come in. She just stood there, hands at her sides, watching something slip away that she thought she could still control. I closed the door without another word. It didn't slam. It didn't echo. But it was final. It came in an unmarked envelope. No stamp. Just dropped through the mail slot like a whisper from the past. Inside, her old Riverline Fitness ID, snapped clean down the middle. Laminate splintered. Her picture, frozen in mid-smile, halved right at the mouth. And a note, folded once, no header, no signature, just 2 words written in the kind of handwriting I hadn't seen since she used to leave sticky notes on my dashboard after errands. I'm sorry. No name, no plea, no return address. It didn't enrage me, didn't soften anything either. I held the pieces for a moment, then set them gently on the counter. The sunlight through the kitchen window caught the crack in the plastic and lit it like a fault line. Later that afternoon, I slid the envelope and note into the back of a drawer in my desk, under receipts, spare keys, and things I no longer reached for, not to forget, just to keep them where they belonged, in the past. By then, the house had already been listed. The realtor's sign sat firm in the yard, 2 showings scheduled. I'd boxed up most of the things that mattered and let the rest go. Sold furniture, donated coats, gave away tools I didn't use anymore. The locks changed, not as a message, just as a fact. My will, updated, notarized, signed. The name next to mine in the medical directives had been replaced. She didn't even know, and wouldn't need to. I didn't keep any of her clothes. No trace of her in the new closet. No ghost in the linen drawer. The Lexus went up for sale too. Not out of spite, just utility. A clean break, shouldn't carry old symbols. And friends asked what happened. I said, life shifted. Some nodded, some probed. I didn't explain. She'd called once, blocked number. I didn't answer. She didn't leave a message. That was weeks ago. I no longer kept track of how many days it had been. I didn't need to. The mornings were different now. Quiet. No noise from the diffuser. No gym bags by the door. Just the soft click of the coffee machine, the hum of a life returning to stillness. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't broken. Just free.